Hello again, YouTube. Alright, so last video I showed you how to get some controls and basic collision detection into your game. So right here I've got that exact same game, but this time we're going to add something. So as you can see, there's a new sprite, a new object, the pellet. By the end of this video, I hope to be able to basically pick up these pellets in the room, and they will add them to a special score. So I've already placed down some pellets in the room. As you can see, they are the yellow dots just sort of around, and they actually do animate. I've got 2 frames. They just sort of pulse. So right off the bat, let's just look at how the pellets function so far. So as you can see, they're sort of just pulsing and flashing, and nothing really happens if I run over them. So that's basically all there is right now. So let's look at the pellet itself. So I've set it to have the sprite pellet, and then I've also set one of its own variables, the image speed variable, to be 0.125. So normally this pellet would basically it would animate at 60 frames per second at 2 frames, which means that it would be flickering between its 2 frames very, very fast. And that would be a default image speed of 1. So what I've done here is I've set the image speed to 0.125. Or basically 1/8. So now it goes at a really visible flickering speed, and that's all the image speed does. It basically just controls the speed at which the sprite animates. So, alright. So last time I showed you how there was the collision rectangle script, and what I'm going to do for this one is I'm not actually going to use that. I'm going to make the collision event. I'm going to use the collision event. So I'm going to make in each pellet the collision with O red ball, and I'm going to drag some code into this. So what I want when you collide with a pellet is for you to gain 1 point, and then for the pellet to disappear. So we can actually get the pellet to disappear very easily, which is instant destroy. And this is a very basic function. It's just an action that you can do, and it gets rid of the object. So if I run the game now and I run into one of these pellets, let me just head over to one. We'll see that it disappears, and I'm gonna just sort of gobble up all of them if I wanted. But what I can do is with these pellets, what I can do is I can make a variable. So I'm going to make the variable in the red ball object, and basically variables are very useful. They're basically storing numbers and data and lists of things and words, and they can basically be used to store almost anything. So the way you define a variable is you just name it. So I'm going to call this one score. Although score is already one of the built-in variables, so I'm going to call this like my score. And then you basically need to set it to a value before you can do anything with it. So I'm just going to set it to 0. So when the game begins, your score is set to 0. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the O pellet collision event, I'm going to set O red ball dot my score plus equals 1. So the O red ball dot basically says this is its variable. So what it is it's saying this. I'm going to change the variable my score belonging to O red ball. And this could be a bit confusing if there were multiple versions of an object, because it would be pretty much editing. I believe the first one. It's either the first one created or all of them. But there are ways to avoid that, and you can always just like set up the collisions in certain objects. But what we can do is we can basically change this. We can change this variable, and we can run this, but it's not actually going to look like anything quite yet. So we've defined the myScore variable, and if I run into this pellet, you'll see it disappears. And I can tell you, just from experience, that the myScore variable did indeed increase, but it's not visible yet, because we haven't programmed any way in which you can see the myScore variable. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to actually add the draw event now. And quickly I'm going to write the draw self function. The draw self function basically just draws the object with its sprite, just automatically without you having to type much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say draw text, and let's say it's at x equals 2, y equals 2, and then I'll say string my score. So what this is that, and you have to put this in the draw event, by the way. What this is that first you're drawing the ball, which is supposed to happen, and then you draw some text, and the default font. You're basically drawing it in the default font. You can make custom fonts. That's a resource over here that you can use, but it's making a text written about the string of my score. And so what this is saying string my score is basically just saying the variable my score, the number variable, as like a text. So I can show you how this works right now, although I think I need to change some things real quick. I forgot to say draw set color C white. This is a good practice. Just sort of the draw set color is just going to set the color of the text. So now you can see up here in the corner there's a little 0, and if I go and run into one of these pellets, and remember that we did set my score to 0, so that is what it's supposed to be, but if I run into one of these pellets, you'll see it changes to a 1. And I can run into all these pellets, like I'll just get this one down here, and now it's a 2. It is getting a little obscured by the bricks. You could change the color of it so that it doesn't blend in with the brick colors, or do some other things. But yeah, as you can see, it's increasing in number as I pick up these pellets. So yeah, so this has just sort of been, we made a variable, my score, which increases every time you collide with a pellet. The pellet uses the instance destroy script to basically delete itself. And then in the player's draw event, it basically writes the score up in the corner. So right now you already have a fair amount of stuff to work with. You could make a game with this, a pretty simple game. So I'm just gonna get this last pellet here. It's not gonna gain me anything, but we're actually coming close to having a playable game here. Like you could have a score that you have to reach in order to win. Like say reach 10 points, and then it would display like some sort of message like you win, and then stop the game. And basically what I'm going to be doing in the next couple episodes is making this into a playable game. But for now, we've covered the instance destroy script, the how to make and change variables, because you remember we changed the my score variable in this one. How to say a variable belongs to an object, like red ball a dot my score, and how to draw some things, specifically text. Actually, real quick, since I've got some time left, I'm going to show you how to make a font. So you just click these two T's up here to create a font. I'll just call this font 1, and you can just select through the whole bank of fonts. Just click on some. I kind of like this one because it's kind of pixely and it fits in. We can set the size differently. We can make it bold, italic. And it just gives you the sample text up here. You can set like anti-aliasing, which is sort of like anti-aliasing is like that blurring that happens on low resolution photos, if you didn't know. But yeah, so now that we have font 1, right before I'm going to end off the video, what we can do is we can add to our draw script. Like we've already set the drawing color to white, and what we can do is we can do draw set font 1. So all text that is now drawn will now be in font 1. So we can look at this now. It might be a little hard to see again because there's some white in the blue brick texture. But yeah, you can see up in the corner there is a little 0, and if I walk over some stuff, it'll turn into a 1. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say today. See you next time, YouTube.